If you wanted to understand the absolute height of Hellenistic culture, say 2,000 years ago, you went to Ephesus.
Well, without a doubt, it was the jewel of Asia Minor.
A city just defined by that staggering Temple of Artemis. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Absolutely. But by the 2nd century CE, this Greek powerhouse was living under the very heavy shadow of Roman imperial rule.
And that's what we're getting into today.
Right. We're doing a deep dive into the source material that reveals one of the most surprising outcomes of that conquest.
Which is how Rome basically forced its rawest cultural institutions, we're talking gladiators, wild animal hunts, onto this incredibly sophisticated Greek city.
Exactly. Our mission here is to analyze how these Roman games became just, completely integrated, and how that shifted everything. Ephesus's architecture, its religious life, and ultimately its core identity.
What's so striking right from the start of the evidence is that this isn't a story of pure rejection.
Not at all.
The sources show the Ephesians didn't just tolerate Roman spectacles, they embraced them. They created this dynamic, new, syncretic culture.
They wove Roman blood sports right into the fabric of their own ancient Greek traditions.
So to understand how they got there, we have to start with the pretty bitter context of their subjection.
We do. Ephesus and the whole province of Asia fell to Rome, well, almost incidentally, in 133 BCE.
It wasn't a military conquest in the usual sense.
No, not at all. It was because King Attalus III of Pergamon bequeathed his entire kingdom to the Roman Republic in his will.
Gave it to them.
Handed it over. So Rome suddenly inherits this massive, incredibly wealthy new province.
But the sources are pretty clear that the relationship soured almost immediately.
Oh, yeah. The new regime was incredibly burdensome. Roman tax collectors were essentially let loose.
They could charge these exorbitant rates on everything from grazing lands to old royal mines for like 5-year periods.
It was an unbelievable transfer of wealth out of the province. And, the loss of economic and civic liberty that came with it created this pressure cooker of resentment.
Which then just exploded.
Barely 4 decades later, it exploded.
And that explosion happens in 89 BCE. This is during the First Mithridatic War.
Right. Mithridates, the 6th Pontiff, he positions himself as this great liberator.
The savior who's going to unite the Hellenistic world against Roman brutality.
And the sources tell us the Ephesians welcomed him with open arms. And then they took part in one of the most horrific events in Roman history.
The Ephesian Vesper.
Exactly. They enthusiastically carried it out, a coordinated, premeditated massacre of Italian residents all across the province.
We're talking merchants, tax collectors, their families.
Everyone. Estimates suggest up to 80,000 people killed in a single day.
Which is just a staggering number. It tells you everything you need to know about the level of hatred Rome had fostered.
Absolutely. And the Romans, well, they never forgot that betrayal.
Of course not. When the commander Sulla retook the city, the vengeance was brutal.
All civic liberties were stripped away, and they imposed these crippling financial penalties.
So that locks Ephesus and Rome into this relationship defined by fear and punishment.
For a long time, yes. It took almost 20 years for that to change.
And the turning point wasn't military.
No, it was cultural. The Roman commander Lucullus, he recognized that Ephesus was just too important to keep beating down.
So he tried a fresh approach.
He did. In 69 BCE, he financed and hosted massive public spectacles, gladiatorial fights specifically, and that was after sponsoring wild animal fights the year before.
And this wasn't charity, this was pure political strategy.
100%. Lucullus understood that if Rome couldn't win their hearts with political freedom, they could win their attention with just breathtaking entertainment and displays of sheer power. The core narrative of the Roman spectacle was never just about entertainment. It was a manifestation of Rome's power. It was about demonstrating, quote, civilization's virtues and its triumphs over barbarity, wildness, and criminality.
So these incredible events, paid for first by Rome and then by wealthy locals who wanted to stay on their good side, they became a substitute.
A very attractive substitute for the political liberties the Ephesians had lost.
I mean, if you can't be politically important, at least you can belong to the empire that puts on the greatest show on earth.
Exactly. But, for a long time, traditional scholarship insisted that the sophisticated, culture-proud Greeks must have secretly despised all this.
Right, that they preferred their high-minded athletic games.
But we have to stop thinking of them as these snooty intellectuals covering their eyes.
The recent scholarship is pretty clear on this, isn't it?
It is. It confirms Roman spectacles were wildly popular across the Greek East, Ephesus included, because they resonated with existing Hellenistic traditions. There was already an appetite for it.
And you see that popularity driving this incredible logistical chaos, especially when it came to getting animals for the wild animal hunts, the Venationes.
The sources describe it as a headlong scramble for exotic beasts across the entire empire.
Just to satisfy the crowd's demands.
And that demand was so intense, it drove magistrates to the brink.
This is where we get that famous correspondence, right? Between Cicero and his friend Marcus Caelius Rufus.
That's the one. Caelius had been elected aedile, so it's his job to put on the games, and he is desperately trying to acquire panthers for his show.
He writes to Cicero in an absolute panic. He's worried that if he fails to deliver, he'll be, quote, put to shame in front of everyone.
Which was a reflection of his duty to the public. And Cicero's reply is just fantastic.
He's joking, right?
He is. He jokes that the panthers in his province are complaining that there are no traps laid for anyone except them, so they've decided to just move to the province of Caria to escape.
It's funny, but it really drives home how intense and unsustainable that pressure was.
This constant pressure to deliver these exotic displays of nature being subdued by Roman strength.
And that systematic conquest of the natural world, it had real, profound consequences.
Absolutely. We see actual environmental destruction leading to scarcity. The sources note how the elimination of wildlife changed the environment for people like the Numidians.
Before Roman demand, they struggled to use their own lands because of all the wild animals.
And afterwards, the territory was clear. They were, quote, transformed into citizens and farmers. Rome's appetite for spectacle literally reshaped the ecology of North Africa.
And the spectacles weren't just about hunting animals. They were about showing Rome's total power over life and death.
Right. The transition from conquering nature to conquering criminality was seamless.
Which leads us to the cruel justice displays, the ad bestia.
Precisely. These were public death sentences for people condemned for capital crimes, murderers, arsonists, sometimes religious offenders.
The psychological terror for these convicts must have been unimaginable.
So profound that we have accounts of many attempting suicide rather than face the arena.
And the brutality was intentionally extreme.
Yeah.
It was designed to maximize the spectacle.
We see these horrific mechanisms being used. One was the tunica molesta.
The flammable tunic.
Yes, a tunic soaked in flammable stuff. They'd essentially set the person on fire.
Horrific.
Or they'd be tied to a cross, explicitly imitating the myth of Prometheus, only to be mauled by bears. This wasn't just execution, it was theater, designed to cement Rome's authority.
So given how central these spectacles were, how popular they became, you have to ask, why didn't Ephesus build its own Colosseum? A dedicated Roman amphitheater.
And that
Yeah.
That right there is the key evidence of the cultural fusion we're talking about.
It was a conscious choice.
A very deliberate one. Ephesus chose not to build a dedicated amphitheater. Instead, they adapted their colossal Greek structures, the great theater and the massive stadium.
They were integrating the Roman into the Greek framework.
Exactly, preserving their own identity while adopting the new entertainment.
And we mentioned that the Greeks already had an appetite for this kind of thing. What was the precedent that made them so receptive?
Well, the most notable one was cockfighting.
Right.
Immensely popular, often fatal contests. The fighting birds were seen as brave, tenacious. The image of a fighting cock was so noble, it was put on hoplite shields.